You won't believe what happened when the HOA decided to fine me over a fence I built on my own ranch. It all started out simple enough. Put up a sturdy fence to keep my livestock safe and my property looking tidy. But instead of just letting it be, the homeowners association came knocking with a hefty fine and a stack of rules that made me question everything about living in this community. They claimed my fence was against the HOA regulations, even though it was just meant to protect my animals. I felt stuck, like the system was working against me instead of helping. That's when things took a turn. Instead of paying the fine or tearing down the fence, I decided to fight back in a way no one expected. You see, the HOA owns a chunk of land nearby that they don't really use. So I took a bold step and rezoned their land as Livestock Overflow. It was a move that flipped the script and made the HOA realize that the rules they tried to enforce on me could be challenged. 2. It wasn't just about a fence anymore. It became a battle over land use, control, and standing up for what's right on your own property. This story isn't just about me and the fence. It's about the struggles many ranch owners face when dealing with strict HOA rules, the tricky lines between community living and private rights, and what happens when you push back. The tension between neighbors and the HOA is growing, and things are heating up fast. I'm about to share the full story. How a simple fence sparked a much bigger fight, and what I did to turn the tables. But just when I thought I had the upper hand, the HOA came back with a move that shocked me. Stay tuned to find out what happened next. Living on a ranch means you expect a certain kind of freedom space for your animals, peace of mind, and the ability to care for your land the way you see fit. But when you're part of an HOA, those freedoms suddenly come with a long list of rules and restrictions that can feel more like chains. I never imagined that something as simple as a fence could turn into this kind of nightmare. The HOA's letter was clear. I had to remove the fence or face escalating fines. They said it violated their strict guidelines about fencing height, materials, and even how far from the property line it could stand at first. I tried to explain the fence was necessary for my cattle's safety. These animals aren't just pets, they're part of my livelihood. But the HOA's board wasn't interested in hearing it. Their main concern seemed to be maintaining a certain look for the neighborhood, which felt unfair when I was just trying to keep my ranch secure. I wasn't alone in feeling this way. Several neighbors had quietly complained about how the HOA was controlling everything from lawn decorations to pet types. Yet, when it came to standing up, most stayed silent, afraid of the backlash. That's why I decided to do something different. I started looking deeper into the HOA's properties, specifically a patch of land adjacent to my ranch. They barely used. It was overgrown, neglected, and honestly wasted space. I did some research and discovered I could petition to have land rezoned under certain conditions. That's when the idea hit me. What if I could officially rezone their unused land as Livestock Overflow? It was a way to not only protect my animals, but also highlight the unfairness of their fine. But the moment I submitted the paperwork, things shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't just a ranch owner with a fence problem. I was a challenger to the entire HOA system. Rumors started spreading among the board members, and meetings became more tense. The next move they made was unexpected, and it put everything on the line. What happened after that changed the game entirely, but I'm getting ahead of myself. After I submitted the rezoning paperwork for the HOA's unused land, everything started to spiral in ways I hadn't expected. At first, it felt like a quiet victory. I was finally using the rules to protect my ranch and my animals. But the HOA board didn't take it lightly. They called an emergency meeting, and suddenly, found myself in the middle of a heated battle that wasn't just about a fence anymore. It was about control, about who gets to decide how land is used in this neighborhood, and about standing up to an authority that many residents quietly resented but never dared to challenge. Neighbors, who'd been on the fence about the HOA began to take sides. Some saw what I was doing as bold and necessary a way to push back against unreasonable restrictions that hurt hard-working ranch owners. Others worried that my actions would bring chaos to the community, or worse, more fines, and legal battles that could drain everyone's resources. The HOA board started spreading rumors that I was trying to monopolize the land or make it less appealing for future residents, which wasn't true at all. It was just about space for livestock overflows, supping. That made sense for the ranching lifestyle many of us signed up for. Meanwhile, the tension in our neighborhood grew. Friendly conversations at weekend barbecues became cautious exchanges. Some neighbors quietly supported me but were afraid to speak out. Others doubled down on siding with the HOA, believing that rules, no matter how strict, kept the community nice. What surprised me most was how personal the conflict became. I wasn't just fighting a faceless organization anymore, was facing people I'd known for years. People who suddenly saw me as a troublemaker. On top of that, the HOA sent another letter threatening even bigger fines if I didn't reverse the rezoning. The board hinted they might take legal action. It felt like a game of chess, each side making moves and countermoves, but the stakes were real. My ranch, my livelihood, and my peace of mind were all on the line. And just when I thought the battle couldn't get more complicated, a surprising twist emerged, one that could change everything. But that part of the story, you'll have to wait for the next video. The tension kept building as the HOA's threats grew louder. They weren't just sending letters anymore, they started showing up unannounced, inspecting my fence, taking photos, and questioning neighbors about my ranch. It felt like they were trying to build a case against me, piece by piece. I knew I wasn't the only one feeling the pressure. Other ranch owners were watching closely, wondering if standing up to the HOA was worth the risk. Every day, the weight of the fines, the legal jargon, and the community's shifting loyalties pressed harder on me. Meanwhile, the rezoning paperwork I filed was stuck in a complicated approval process. The local zoning board hadn't rejected it outright, but the HOA was flooding them with complaints, emails, and legal arguments designed to stall any progress. It was clear this wasn't going to be a quick fix. The fight was dragging on, and my patience and resources were wearing thin. But giving up wasn't an option. My fence wasn't just a barrier. It was the line between my ranch surviving or falling apart. Rumors started to swirl about a secret HOA plan to sell off parts of the land, including the area I rezoned to developers. That would have changed everything, turning quiet ranch land into crowded subdivisions. The thought of that happening pushed me to fight even harder. This wasn't just about a fence or a fine anymore, it was about preserving a way of life. One evening, I received a late-night call that shook me. The HOA board had called a special meeting, no agenda shared, no warning given. Neighbors were buzzing with speculation. Were they about to push through a new rule or take legal action that could shut me down for good? I felt the walls closing. In the next few days would decide everything. The climax was coming, and I had no idea what it would bring. Just when I thought the pressure couldn't get any worse, a new twist hit me like a freight train. A few days after that secret HOA meeting, found out that one of the board members had quietly approached a neighboring ranch owner with an offer deal to buy their land to create a buffer zone, effectively isolating my property. It felt like a direct move to squeeze me out, to cut off any chance of expanding or even maintaining my livestock space. Suddenly, this wasn't just a fight over a fence or a zoning paper anymore. It was a full-blown battle for survival on my own land. To make matters more complicated, the neighbor who was approached was someone I'd considered an ally. Hearing they were being tempted with money and promises left me feeling betrayed and more isolated than ever. The HOA's tactics were getting personal. It was clear they wanted to break the community's unity by driving wedges between neighbors at the same time. I discovered something unexpected during a routine check on the property records up. Clause buried deep in the HOA's governing documents that gave them more power over land use than I'd ever realized. If they pushed hard enough, they could impose restrictions that would make even the livestock overflow zone impossible. It was a hidden weapon they hadn't mentioned before, and it threatened to undo everything I'd fought for. With fines piling up, neighbors turning cautious, and the HOA tightening its grip, the stakes were higher than ever. My ranch wasn't just a piece of land anymore. It was a symbol of fighting back against unfair control. But with every move I made, the HOA seemed ready to counter. Like a shadow looming larger with each step, I was standing on the edge, and the next moment could change everything, either crushing my ranch dreams or flipping the whole situation in a way no one saw coming. The real battle was about to begin. As the special HOA meeting approached, I knew this was the moment everything would come to a head. The neighborhood buzzed with nervous energy, and I could feel eyes watching, waiting to see if I'd back down or stand my ground. When the day arrived, I showed up early, documents in hand, ready to fight not just for my fence, but for my ranch, my livestock, and the respect I deserved. Inside the meeting room, the tension was thick. The HOA board presented their case, accusing me of violating rules, creating chaos, and disrespecting the community. I listened carefully and laid out my own argument, how the fence was essential for the safety of my animals, how the rezoning of their unused land as livestock overflow was a fair and legal move, and how their heavy-handed approach was hurting neighbors more than helping. I had support from a few neighbors who spoke up quietly but firmly, showing this wasn't just my fight, was about standing up for fair treatment in the community. Then, something unexpected happened. Just as the board was about to vote, one of the members, someone who had been quiet until then, stood up and revealed a key detail. The HOA had failed to follow proper legal procedures when issuing my fines and trying to block the rezoning. This mistake could invalidate their entire case. The room went silent. It was a turning point that shifted the power back to me. In the end, the board voted to drop the fines and accept the rezoning request. The fence stayed. The overflow land was officially recognized, and my ranch was safe for now. But the final twist came just as I thought it was over. The same board member who exposed the HOA's errors quietly warned me that changes were coming to the neighborhood's rules, changes that could threaten all of us down the line. I walked away relieved, but knowing this wasn't the last battle. The fight for my ranch and my rights was far from over, and that's a story for next time. After that intense meeting, things slowly started to settle down. The fines were dropped, and the HOA officially recognized the rezoning of their unused land as livestock overflow. My fence stayed exactly where it was meant to be, protecting my cattle and marking the boundary of my ranch. It felt like a win, not just for me, but for anyone who's ever felt pressured by strict HOA rules that don't understand the realities of ranch life. The neighbors who had been hesitant began to open up, sharing their own frustrations with the HOA's heavy-handedness. Some even reached out to me afterward, grateful I stood up and showed it's possible to push back without losing your home or your peace of mind. It was clear that this fight wasn't just about a fence or zoning. It was about fairness, respect, and the right to live in a way that honors your property and your lifestyle. Of course, the warning from that HOA board member lingered in my mind. The community might have backed off for now, but changes were coming. It reminded me that being vigilant and informed is the only way to keep control over your land and your future. Ranch living isn't always easy, especially when rules are made by people who don't fully understand what it takes to care for animals and manage large spaces. But standing up, speaking out, and knowing your rights can make all the difference in the end. This story is about more than just one fence or one piece of land. It's about fighting for what matters and not letting others dictate your life unfairly. If you're dealing with similar HOA struggles or just trying to protect your ranch, remember, you're not alone, and sometimes pushing back is the only way forward. Thanks for following my story. There's plenty more to come.